Dana Denha here, and this is Let's Watch with the Ann Arbor Film Festival. Every year, talented filmmakers from all over the world aim to take part in our local film fest. Sometimes the talent isn't far from home as locals make their mark on this internationally renowned annual event. Today we are sitting down with a local filmmaker that shined a spotlight on our own body of water, the Huron River, a natural resource that makes Ann Arbor that much more special. Joining me is Jack Cronin with his film, Rivergarden. Welcome to the show, Jack.
Hi, Dana. Thanks for having me.
So first I'd like to know a little bit about your experience with the Ann Arbor Film Festival. Is it just as a filmmaker, or was it one film and done, or?
No, I've been going to the Ann Arbor Film Festival for a long time. This is, I think, actually the fourth film I've had in the festival, but I've been attending it since, I was in college, I guess. It's just been like, every year I'd automatically go to the festival. Yeah.
What kind of attracted you to go to the Ann Arbor Film Festival? Because it is different than a lot of film festivals out there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my interest in film has always been very much around experimental and avant-garde film, and the Ann Arbor Film Festival is kind of like one of the really, I think, premier places to see that kind of work. And so, that's really what's attracted me to it, definitely.
So you said you've had 4 films in there now?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 4.
So
Rivergarden was the last one.
Yeah, so that was the most recent. You said that was 2013-ish.
Yeah.
Well, let's just say 2013 for sure. But why don't you talk about some of the other films that you've had in the festival?
Okay, well, the first one was actually my thesis film that I did in film school. It was a little documentary about my parents. And then I made a film about Detroit. When I was living in Detroit, I made a film about Detroit. It kind of had very similar style to Rivergarden, same kind of camera and same kind of aesthetic, I guess. And then I did another one about the Sleeping Bear Dunes. So those are sort of 3 films, like kind of about places that are similar in a lot of ways. They're all around 10 minutes long, and they're all shot on Super 8 film, black and white mostly, not totally, mostly. And yeah, so those are the 4 films. So Deer and the Antelope was the first one, and then Invisible City was the film about Detroit, and then Sleeping Bear, and then Rivergarden.
Oh, nice. So what attracts you to, like, it kind of seems like you're about, it could be nature or man-made, but it's like your experiences, I guess, with certain things?
Like making films about places, sort of. Yeah, I guess I like the idea of being able to go to a place and study it and explore it and use that as like material to create a film, I guess. There's a lot of advantages to that. Like, it's always available. You don't have to call up a place and say, "Can I come over and shoot?" Like, I could just go and shoot anytime I wanted to. And especially with the Huron River, because I live right there right across from the river, and so I was able to gather material over a long period of time, a lot of different shoots. And I guess I'm just interested in places, just exploring places, and just drawn to that, I guess.
Why don't you tell me about your background as a filmmaker and kind of how we've gotten to where we are today?
Sure. Yeah. Well, kind of discovered film in college. I just took a film class and kind of fell in love with it, and then I went on to study film at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, which is a program that really sort of emphasizes experimental film in a lot of ways, and avant-garde film, and that was where I really discovered, I guess, avant-garde and experimental work. I was exposed to a lot of films and got to see a lot of different filmmakers and visiting filmmakers and things like that. And then I got to come back and teach film. I applied for a job at Wayne State, and that brought me back to Detroit.
So you're originally from?
I'm originally from the Detroit area, but I had been living in Wisconsin for several years, going to grad school, and then a job came up at Wayne State. I applied for it, and they asked me out, and I lived in Detroit and taught there for a while, and that was where I made the Detroit film, and then eventually moved out of the city. But I've just been teaching ever since I finished grad school. I've been teaching film and then making films on my own, just funded all by myself, basically.
Yeah, but you're currently working at OCC?
Yeah, I'm teaching film and video at Oakland Community College. Yeah.
So do you see any of your students throughout the years submitting to the Ann Arbor Film Festival or kind of taking the same sort of path that you're taking?
Yeah, I've had students actually like, uh, I've had students in the past, former students that have gone on and made films that they've submitted to that festival and other places and shown work there. They, a few years back, did a student film festival or student film showcase at the film festival that a few OCC students were a part of. So yeah, definitely. It's always exciting to see like students when they send me an email say, my film got into so and so festival, and so yeah, definitely.
If you could give like aspiring filmmakers any sort of advice to be in the film festival or any sort of film festival, what would you say?
Wow, I guess the thing about, because so film festivals are kind of the main place where I show work. Sometimes galleries and other things like that, but mostly it's film festivals. So when I finish a film, I'll typically send it out to maybe at least 20 or 30 festivals. And like I always tell my students that you just have to put your work out there and keep submitting it to places, because there's no such thing as like a guarantee that you're going to get into any
Well,
film
I think you
festival.
have to get used to rejection
You
in
have
this
to get
field.
used to rejection. You have to be persistent. It's kind of the least fun part of making films, is like, sending stuff off to film festivals, filling out like paperwork or whatever, but it's so necessary to find an audience for your work. And you just have to do research, find a festival that's appropriate for your kind of work, and put it out there and be persistent and not get like totally devastated if you don't get in, because I don't certainly get into a lot of the festivals that I apply
Well, especially
to.
when you're applying to that many. I mean, there has to be some.
Absolutely. I expect that, and it's no big deal, because if you apply to enough places, you're bound to get hopefully accepted in some at least, and that makes it worthwhile for me anyway.
Yeah, I think anytime that you're involved in the arts, you should get used to rejection at some point, any sort of
Absolutely.
artistic
Yeah.
career.
You have to have a thick skin, and you have to be persistent, for sure.
All right, we're going to take a look at your film. Now that we've heard about Jack's experience with the film festival and his career, let's take a look at his film, Rivergarden. Well, thanks for sharing your film with us. And why don't you tell me a little bit about, because you were talking about how you've had 3 films in the film festival that are all kind of similar to each other. So how did you get on this track of doing this sort of like black and white abstract sort of feel?
Yeah, so they're all shot on Super 8 film, which is kind of a older
Lost
format,
medium.
right? Yeah, like it's kind of getting hard to even find the film stock anymore, and the cameras are all like eBay and garage sale cameras and stuff like that. And I guess I like the texture of it and the graininess of the Super 8 film, and I've just been drawn to it like photographically. I guess that's why I originally had started. I got really interested in Super 8. I had, in grad school, I guess I had shot a lot of 16 millimeter.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked that as well, but I really liked the kind of smallness of the camera, and you still get the feel of film, but it's like a little camera that you can carry around. They're easy to shoot with. They're inexpensive. The film is not expensive. So yeah, I guess I just sort of fell into using them for these 3 films. I don't know that I'm gonna continue that with any other films. I feel like I kind of maybe did that with those 3, and now I'm kind of going on to something else. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it just felt like an interesting way to approach these places, and photographically, because the films are very much about photography and
Mm-hmm.
the image, so the graininess and the Super 8 camera just felt right for that.
So when you say you kind of see yourself going away from that a little bit after these 3 films, do you see yourself using Super 8 anymore, or because it's harder to find, you might be moving on to a new technology?
No, I think I still have. I probably will still use Super 8 a little bit. I've gotten back to 16 millimeter a little bit, which is also like kind of on its way out, maybe. And I also shoot video. I've been working on more kind of documentary type stuff where I'm shooting video as well. But I think as long as my cameras keep running, like they keep little knobs sometimes fall off of them and break up. So as long as they keep working, I'll probably keep using them and shooting Super 8. But I transfer my work to video. So I shoot on Super 8 and then I transfer it to video, and they're all edited digitally, so I can put everything together in the computer. I'm not like actually splicing film when I shoot on film. So it's a big advantage, like in terms of the things I can do with manipulating the image and things I can do with audio and stuff like that.
So you feel like you're getting more, even though you're pretty much digitally editing, you feel like you're getting more from shooting it on Super 8 film as opposed to like shooting with a digital camera of some sort.
I think it's hard to really match the sort of things that happen in a film camera with a digital camera. I mean, I definitely like digital cameras a lot, and I use them, and I teach the classes I teach where we use digital cameras, but I think there's a certain like organic quality to film that I really am attracted to, and the sometimes randomness of things that you don't expect to happen that I like a lot in film, or shooting on film. So I probably will keep shooting film in one way or another as long as I can, as long as it's still available.
So with this Rivergarden film, is the camera waterproof? Because it seems like you're going under the water in it.
Yeah, well, the camera's not waterproof. So I actually built a box, like a plexiglass waterproof box that took a long time. It was, well, I'll tell you, like when I had the idea for this film, there's a little scuba diving place next to our house. And so I went in there and I was like, have a underwater housing for my Super 8 camera. And the guy just like looked at me like, what are you using this thing for? Why would you want that? Why would you want to waste your money on a Super 8 and so on? So like he kind of laughed me out of the store. So like fine. I decided I was just going to make a box out of plexiglass. It seemed easy at the time, thinking of it in my head. It turned out to be really complicated, like to make something that would be watertight and then would also allow me to work the camera, like to manipulate the camera, to see through the viewfinder of the camera. It's not like, you could take a GoPro camera and just throw it in the water and shoot with it. It's so easy. But like with Super 8, it's much more complicated. And so anyway, I made this box and I rigged up a sort of view, like a little tiny TV set to it, sort of like a video assist, I guess, and it was wired down into the box, so I could submerge the box underwater without going underwater myself, and then I could see what it was filming remotely, I guess, through this little screen. So.
So a lot of it was shot at the Huron River, but some of it was shot elsewhere too?
Yeah, so some of it was shot in the Mallett's Creek, which is like kind of feeds into the Huron River. It's actually right behind our house, and we go down there a lot, and that's, I guess, part of the reason that my kids are in the film as well.
I was going to say, those are your children,
we
right?
go down there. It's like kind of our regular place where we go and explore and things like that. And so, yeah, well, some of it was shot there, and some of it was shot actually in the Huron River itself. It was a little easier to manage the camera and things in the creek versus the river.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, I shot in both places.
So when you watch the film or when you're creating it, do you feel like the water has a different meaning to it, or?
Yeah, there are, I think, some meanings that take out of it that probably I'm the only one that will. But, you know, I had this idea of just the nature of water running down a river or stream as sort of a metaphor for, like, my kids growing up and watching them grow up and just changing. And so that was also part of the reason that I included them into the film, because I had that on my mind. And I don't know if anybody else would think that watching the film. I mean, it could be just very personal, like, interpretation of it, but that was kind of my part of what I was thinking about making that film about the river. So it's not just like a documentary about the Huron River.
Yeah.
You really don't get like any information about the river itself.
No, you don't. I mean, you get to see a lot of really beautiful images of it and stuff, but I assume that the children had to have a deeper meaning in the film while I was watching it.
Yeah, and I think also, you know, I also was thinking about just the process of making films for me, which is kind of about like looking at little things, little details, and it felt like that's kind of what kids do, or at least that's what I remember doing when I was a kid, like studying
and that's what they're doing in it too.
Yeah, and they're always picking up things, especially my daughter is always like grabbing whatever little bug or leaf or whatever, and so that's, I think, kind of the way that I've been making these films as well, and so it just felt like that felt appropriate to have them in there for that reason too. Did
you feel like you had to coach them while you were shooting them, or they just kind of let them do what they would
No, I didn't really do anything. Just I didn't coach them at all. They got pretty used to me bringing the camera down there. And pretty much didn't pay any attention to it for the most part. I mean, once in a while I might tell them, you know, like come over here and get in the picture or something, or you know. But no, mostly they were pretty much just doing their own thing, and I was just following them around.
Well, when you talk about how it has to do with like time changing and growing and stuff like that, I'm sure even now when you watch that film, that's been a couple of years now since you shot it, so they're different.
They're different, totally different. Yeah, I know. It's funny to see the film, and just a couple of years for a kid, especially.
It's a lot. Yeah.
It's very different. Yeah.
One of the things that really stood out to me is the sound in it is really beautiful, like the water running in nature and stuff like that. And did you have to do something special to get that natural sound?
It's a lot of layers of different sounds, actually. So I did a lot of recordings of just, like, sometimes I would go down with the camera. Other times I would go down with my sound recorder. It was usually too complicated to take both. So, like, it was one or the other. So I gathered a lot of sounds, kind of the way I gathered images, and then I guess just sort of layered them in the computer, built up these sort of sound spaces myself.
So did you get decent sound when you were going underneath the water? Because you can definitely, there's a difference between when you have the images where you're above the water and the way the water sounds, and then when you're underneath the water and the way it sounds.
The audio that I got underneath the water, let me think. I did get some audio underneath the water because I did have a little like video camera next to my film camera. That was like the video assist. And I think I incorporated some of that. But I think I also took some of the other audio that I had and just manipulated some of the frequencies to make it sound like it was underwater more. So some of that is not real like authentically underwater
But it sounds like
images.
it is,
So that was
yeah.
my intention, was to make something that sounded like it was underwater maybe. But it was really, getting decent audio underwater was kind of a little bit beyond my technical
No, it seems like it would be pretty hard to do.
abilities, and
I don't
so
know if a
I
GoPro
had.
would get it. I mean, they don't
It
have great
might,
sound
yeah, it
quality
might. And
either, but
like I said, I did have some of that audio,
yeah.
but I don't know. I mean, I probably used some of it in there, but I mostly just manipulated audio that I had to make it.
And
give it
at
that
some points,
quality.
it almost sounds like there's like a rainstorm or something else going on with the water too. I don't know if you were trying to do that or if that's just something I was hearing when I was listening to it.
There's like I just recorded water, any kind of water that I could find, and
Yeah.
so there's even recordings of like Lake Michigan in there,
Yeah.
and like there's all kinds of things that I gathered. I might even recorded. I know I did record some of the when we were out near the Atlantic Ocean. There were some wave sounds that probably made it into it. So I had like all these different recordings of water. The creek itself, the dam. That's I forget what that's called now. The dam on the Huron River where there's like a big waterfall.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
recorded all kinds of different sounds
Yeah.
of water.
It works. It's really nice. The whole thing, the overlaying images, the sound quality, everything was really, I don't know, there's something
Thanks.
soothing about it too.
That's good. That's good.
So we're just about out of time, but hopefully we will see you in future film festivals and even see a different sort of work coming from you too.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm trying to break out of I did these 3 films, and now I feel like I need maybe to do something a little bit different. So I'm working on something now that's different for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Jack.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
To watch this and other CTN series online, visit a2gov.org/CTN. Until next time, I'm Dana Denha.